about in your book as you're discussing how evil can actually point us to the light and point us to God is today people's fascination with true crime, especially women's fascination
Yep.
with true crime. Maybe this is like the modern Dostoevsky. Not a lot of people today are reading Crime and Punishment the way they used to. I had to read it in high school, but I don't know if that's still required like it
No.
used to be. But a lot of people are still fascinated with evil, whether it's scary movies or true crime. What is behind that, do you think?
Well, the whole point of Kingdom of Cain is to take murders, real life murders, that have been transformed into art again and again. So not just one artist, but movie makers, poets, novelists have taken these particular murders. There's really four of them in there. I picked four murders and show you how they become art, how they turn to art. And the reason that's important to me is because artists make the world beautiful. They make something beautiful even out of ugliness. So if you read Macbeth and it's filled with murder and betrayal and death and all this, but the play itself is very beautiful because it actually presents you these things in that within that moral order. And I think that's what people are looking for in crime, because you're absolutely right, Ali. This is something I've talked about a lot, is that it must be incredibly frustrating to the devil that even the greatest evil he can commit points the way to the sacred. And nowhere is that more true than in murder. Why is it when we see murder, we know we've hit the line? We know that's the place where you can't say, it might be right, or it might have been right at some point in time, or maybe it's right in Venezuela, but it's not right in Morocco. That's murder is the place where everybody says, yes, that is evil. Well, why is that? Well, it's because of the sanctity of the human person. It's because each of us has inside ourselves a consciousness that is creating a life, creating an experience, creating a unique road to God. And so continuing the work of Genesis, continuing God's creative work. I mean, God created a creation that continues to create. And when you snuff that out, nothing can make up for that. Nothing can bring that consciousness back. It's unique in this world. It's unique. It's incredibly creative and beautiful. When you abort it in the womb, you destroy an entire life that would have been. And so I think that people turn to this because it is weirdly reassuring in a way to remind ourselves that there is something that cannot be excused. It cannot be talked away. It's a solid spiritual thing that there is evil in the world. And I know it would be happier if we could say, there is good in the world, there's love in the world. And that's true too, there is. But there's something about murder that is just an absolutely stark line in the sand. And I think people are fascinated by it in a way because we've lost that that sense of a God making things beautiful. I think that people would be better off if they were reading Dostoevsky more and maybe being titillated by true crimes a little less. I think that would be better
Yeah.
because it's when the mind and heart and soul of the artist engage with murder, that we see it become something beautiful in this larger context, which is what I think God is doing with the world itself.
Yes, because I think watching these true crime shows, or when I was in high school, my mom and I would watch Law and Order SVU, which is terrifying. I'm like, why did we do that? But it creates a lot of anxiety. It doesn't really, especially immediately, create some sort of peace. You're not immediately transferred into thoughts about God and his goodness. You're thinking, this is going to happen to me. And I think about the passage in Philippians 4. I think it's verses 4 through 8 that, God through Paul tells us to dwell on that which is lovely and pure and excellent and worthy of praise, and to be filled with thanksgiving, and to give our burdens to God in prayer. And so there is some sort of balance between looking at darkness, recognizing it for the objective evil that it is, contrast it to God's goodness, and constantly dwelling on the darkness, knowing that it's going to fill us with the kind of fear and paranoia that really isn't good for us.
I think there is a difference between those things. And there are works, by the way, that like I would say are not art.
Yeah.
Pornography immediately leaps to mind, but there are other things on the
Right.
way to pornography that I think are not art and do not explain anything and do not give any experience. But I think that quote from Philippians, which gets thrown at me a lot because a lot of people write to me and say, you call yourself a Christian and yet you write these books about murder and about, gangsters and evil people. And yes, I do. And I will continue to do that because I think it's really important to have faith in the world as it is.
Hmm.
And if you take that quote from Philippians and use it like that song from Peter Pan, like think of the happiest things. It's the same as having wings. I think you have to remember that Peter Pan never grows up. And if your faith never becomes the faith of a grown-up person, it's not going to stand up very well when you come into contact with the things that really do happen in this world. Not just the evil, but also the suffering, the cruelty. I mean, look, we believe in a God who was crucified.
Hmm.
That's a deep, deep thing. That's a very, very tragic truth. And yet, the very deepest thing that God does for us is contained within that crucifixion. And I think that, one of the first things it says in Philippians is meditate and dwell on what is true. And what is true is all the beauty we experience, all the good that we experience, all the God that we experience takes place in this very dark world. And so I don't think that that quote is meant to make us fools. I don't think it's meant to make us like childlike fools who only think that good things are going to happen. This is my problem with a lot of modern Christian art, because Christian art at the peak of Christianity, at the time when Christianity was the dominant Western faith and was everywhere to be found, Christian art was not like that at all. When you look at the paintings of Michelangelo, when you look at the plays of Shakespeare, when you look at the masses and funeral masses of Mozart and Bach, you're dealing with a great deal of sorrow and darkness and pain and suffering that I think Christianity was meant to address. It's not meant to be, God is not the God of Never Never Land. He's not the God of Candyland. He's the God of this world. And your faith has to be in this world. It has to be the faith in a sad world. And so I think that just like if you all you ever watch about romance and love is romantic comedies, and you begin to think that that's what love is going to be like, you're going to be very disappointed in life because love is much more complex and deep and dark and human than a romantic comedy. And in the same way, if all you ever watch, and I don't attack these films at all, but if all you ever think about is God is not dead, part 12, this time he's really not dead, I think that you are actually going to have a very disappointing view of faith when you're forced to confront the true tragedies and the true suffering and the true evil that all of us at some point have to confront. And so the reason I believe in the arts is because I believe the arts transform this evil and this darkness into a source of light. And I think that that is a beautiful thing.